Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a legendary battle to share with you guys. One that I have done before, one that about 1,000 other people on YouTube have done before. So why am I doing this? Why am I comparing again the Rick Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch and the Zero Tolerance 0562? Why am I doing this? Well, recently, please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex if you would. Recently, DLT Trading released their exclusive Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch no choil slicer again, but for the first time with the tri-way pivot system. For anybody who doesn't know, that's that little symbol right there on the flipper tab, and that means that this Hinderer has been outfitted with the tri-way pivot system, which is a system that allows you to change out bearings, phosphor bronze, or nylon whenever you want. It actually comes with all that stuff, right? So why is that a big deal? Well, to add a brief history to this, and I've talked about this a million times, so to save time with my other viewers who have heard me say this a million times, back in Generation 4, which was when the ZT0562 was made, the ZT0562 was a collaboration between Rick Hinderer and Zero Tolerance. The idea was to bring a version of the XM18 to the production knife world and make it easier to get, because it was much harder to get an XM18 at the time, right? So they brought this to the production knife world. Still made in the United States, but much less expensive, right? ZT was using, at the time, something that was not super common: lock bar inserts, bearings, right? They led the way for flipping action. And ultimately what happened was the people who were already frustrated with the cost of these guys and super frustrated with the fact that you could not get the XM18 for anything less than $600 on the secondary market, if you could find it. Really, even if they did get their hands on it, back then the flipping action wasn't all that great. It didn't have the lock bar insert. It was running on nylon, right? They were a little bit thick and clunky behind the edge. So the ZT0562 became the better Hinderer, right? It was the lesser Hinderer by production standards, right? Or by quality standard, what should have been the case on paper. But people were finding that it was better. And truthfully, as a Hinderer fan, who are you getting this information from? I'm one of the biggest Hinderer nuts on YouTube. I love the ZT0562 and I love the XM18. The knife that got me into the XM18 was the ZT0562 because I could not get my hands on this guy at the time, right? Fast forward to today, I've owned 3 of these and about 18 of these, 27 Hinderers in total. Literally, I have a Hinderer knives playlist on my list where you can go back and check out all of the Hinderer stuff that I've handled and owned since I started this channel, right? That's who you're getting this information from. I want to talk about specifically, again, now that we've got the exact same version, which of these knives is better? Which of these knives is better for your money, right? The reason I'm doing this again, right, I'm coming around to this, I'm rambling. If you guys are new to my channel, I'm rambly. Right? I don't like to do the structure, the notes, and the script thing. I don't like to do that. It doesn't feel real to me. So the reason I'm doing it again now is because DLT Trading released the exact blade. This blade has never been, this exact no choil version of the slicer grind has only been, has been exclusive to the ZT variant up until DLT Trading decided to make that exact blade shape exclusive through their retailer. And yes, you can pick up this knife and all Hinderer variants and all that stuff. I will link everything you guys could possibly find for Hinderer knives and ZT, the ZT0562 right down in the description, so you can pick up whatever you want during or after this video. So now, right, all the different Hinderer XM18s that have ever been compared with the ZT0562 have been different in some way, shape, or form, right? Even the older version of this, because the last time that DLT did this, it was non-tri-way, which means it didn't have the bearings, it didn't have the lock bar insert, which the ZT did, right? So it's never really been a completely fair comparison up until now. Now, we can really compare apples to apples. It is the exact same blade shape. It is the exact same build other than a couple of different elements. Now, the Hinderer is the real thing. It is the real Hinderer. The ZT0562 is a Rick Hinderer design that was created by Zero Tolerance. It is not a clone of the XM18. That's not what's happening there. There's a few people who've brought that up. This is not a clone. Rick Hinderer designed this. It says Hinderer design right on the blade, right? This Hinderer XM18 today comes in at $425. That's a lot of money, right? But all the parts are made in-house. There is unquestionably more work that goes into an XM18 than a ZT0562. These are 100% machine made. They are made in much greater efficiency. There are a few parts on this knife that are of less quality, of lesser quality than the Hinderer parts, like the hardware and things. They use special hardware on the XM18 for anybody who doesn't know. And then these are, I'm going to say, mostly made in the United States. I don't know all the details on that, but ZT knives, I believe, are mostly made in the United States. That's just my thoughts. I don't have any factual information on that. You can't take my word as law. I'm not actually making that statement officially. I don't know. But for the most part, made in the United States. So now we've got these two here, and if you didn't watch the last time I did this video, I concluded that for me personally, the Hinderer XM18 was the better knife for me. The irony here is that a lot of people who settle in on this guy have this lingering feeling that they're never really gonna know until they get their hands on the real thing, and that is the truth. If you're laboring over that right now, if you own this guy and you're watching this video and you're seeking reaffirmation, Metal Complex, tell me that I can keep this guy and never need to go with the XM18. You could, but I can't get rid of that feeling for you. There's nothing that I can do about that. That will always be there. It was there for me until I finally caved in and bought one, right? It's a slippery slope because you could end up like me and buying a ton of them, right? What does better mean? Well, here's the thing. Functionally, nobody's going to be able to definitively tell the difference between these two knives functionally. If you're somebody who just comes at this with, there's not really much in the way of, like, in terms of my interest in these knives. I'm not interested in all the flashy polishes and all the this or that. I just want to know which one's the better tool. They're both about the same, honestly. I measured, behind the edge, I tried to measure like 5 times for each one, and I came in, the ZT0562 came in at between, I think it was 18 and 20 thousandths behind the edge, and the Hinderer came in between 20 and 22 thousandths behind the edge. But they have a skinny version of the XM18 3.5-inch no-choil slicer that will come in undoubtedly at least as thin as this guy, and potentially even less, right? On the spine of the ZT0562, it's 155 thousandths. On the spine of the XM18 3.5-inch standard thickness, it's 165 thousandths. Whereas the skinny version of this exact same knife, which is the same length, same blade shape, same everything, it's just everything is a little bit thinner, right? It's 145 thousandths. So arguments of edge geometry and which one is slicier are pretty much out the window, because all of the skinny, the standard, and the ZT0562 are so close to each other in terms of thickness behind the edge and the overall blade profile that there's really nothing to be said anymore about which one is really going to be the better performer. There's just not, that's out the window, right? We're going to go through these one little element at a time, okay? Moving on, the overall appearance to me is better on the Hinderer. The XM18 has a better delivery in terms of just aesthetics. I think the tumbling on the blade is just slightly better. I think the tumbling and the reflectivity on the handle scale is a little bit better. I really like the excess that they put into the polishing on the hardware. The standoffs on the ZT0562 look kind of bland. The screws are just, kind of this black, whatever. It's fine. They both hold the knife in place. But, if you're looking at these knives, most people, there's going to be people going, why would we care about that? Why would we care about that? Most people who are interested in these knives, dude, they care about this stuff. You wouldn't be looking at knives that are over $100 if you didn't care about this stuff at least a little bit. So, yeah, that's the case here. The Hinderer hardware looks better. There's some nice reflectivity and contrast to it, and it's great. And you know what? If you're not big into the whole reflectivity thing, let me jump on the topic of customization. There are aftermarket parts for the ZT0562. In fact, there are aftermarket parts that can, make the 0562 appear more Hinderer-like. But how many options are there? Nothing close to the XM18. Nothing close. You want to build a specific Hinderer? You can go to the aftermarket if you want, or you can just pick up parts and accessories that Rick Hinderer makes specifically for the XM18, and they will all fit perfectly, all of them. I actually have my own, for anybody who hasn't, I know that my subscribers have seen this knife a million times, but my current Hinderer actually has tons of custom hardware on it. It's got the full titanium scale on it. It's got the cool custom Rick Hinderer pocket clips, some specific handle nuts. It's great. I love this knife. This is a non-flipper version from also from DLT. But yeah, the custom. If you want to make your own custom knife and you want to have all the options in the world and you're wanting to know which one has more options, no, unquestionably the XM18 is much more customizable. It is much easier to do that as well. Which brings me to disassembly. The pivot, getting at the pivot of the ZT0562, no problem at all. It's a Torx head, no big deal. Nice large Torx size for the handle screws. For the XM18, it's a flathead or a penny, right? Just as accessible, for most people as a Torx bit. You've got hex for the body screws on this guy. On different Hinderers, it is Torx in some situations. Well, that spanner side, the 0562 is so much easier to adjust because you have to have a specific tool. No, you don't. You can get the Hinderer Armor's tool for this guy if you want to, or you can cut a notch in a penny or buy a spanner bit at your local hardware store for about $2.50. So as far as ease of disassembly on the pivot, any arguments there, that's out the window. They're both easy to do. Where the Hinderer wins again, as far as ease of disassembly, is number one, there are less body screws. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a pocket clip screw, but it's also a body screw. So you got to take out 4. And guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side. The Hinderer, 1, 2, 3. That's it, because there's just Chicago screws on this side. On top of that, you could make an argument that the Hinderer screws here in the body are free spinning. And in one situation, I've had that happen, but I resolved that by putting a piece of tape over the top of the Chicago side and turning it and it came loose. Disassembling the 0562, all of them, you're going to have an issue with a little bit of free spin. You're going to have a Torx driver for both sides, and you're going to have to turn. You're really going to have to fight that. Anybody who's taken apart the 0562 will tell you it's more cumbersome, it's more frustrating than taking apart the XM18. It just is. The XM18 is easier to take apart, and it has higher quality, more, resistant to stripping out screws. Is it like a 13 pH or something? They use some kind of special steel that's hardened specifically for the hardware on the XM18. That's part of the extra that you pay for there. So as far as disassembly goes, I can get both of these apart. It's not that bad. It's not like taking apart the Mannix 2. Taking apart the Hinderer, the real Hinderer is much easier than the ZT0562, right? Let's go ahead and talk about another element here, something that's standing. I know a lot of people probably have already stopped watching the video before I talk about this. This version of the ZT0562 is actually no longer available. This is in G10 and S35VN. This was kind of their budget option of this guy. Can't get this one anymore. Your only choices are carbon fiber at $260 with 20 CV steel, which is great because that's what these newer ones are, generally M390 or 20 CV on the Hinderer side. Or you can get full titanium for $280 and M390 or 20 CV. That's great that you can get titanium for $280. And that adds a lot of value in a lot of people's mind, because my full titanium Hinderer, you want to build a full titanium Hinderer, you're going to pay $600 for that. You're going to pay more than double, right? So we're really comparing right now 260 versus 425, or if they were all titanium, 280 versus 300, right? For people who put a specific value on the materials used in the overall makeup of the item and nothing else, if that's their only value system, I'm sorry, your value system is flawed. Yes, titanium makes you feel good about what you put into the knife. Yes, M390 makes you feel good, right? M390 and titanium can be had through Tucson for $150 if you want. It can be had for even less. Your value system is flawed if that's what you're basing this on. If you're happy with the choices you've made based on that value system, then that's fine, because that's the ultimate goal. Whatever makes you happy is fine, right? But because we're talking about these two knives and there are different elements outside of the materials used in what they, what they are, that has to be brought up. Where the knife is made, how it is made, how many processes go into it, the overall fit and finish of everything. All of those little tiny details add to value, well, for some people they add value, but the one factual part of that is it costs more money to make something like that. This knife costs more money to make than this guy, factually. How much more? I honestly don't know. The end result of it is, I mean, will people pay what they're asking, right, in mass quantities? In the case of the Hinderer XM18, what that translated to was, yes, this costs more money than this to make, and this is more expensive than this by a long shot. But people buy these things like crazy. They buy these things like crazy, but people buy Hinderers, including myself, like crazy because after they handle them, they go, oh my gosh, this is different. This is a different feeling. Let's talk about the feeling between these two, right? Both of them flip. Both of them are easy to disengage. Both of them pretty readily drop shut. Sorry, I didn't get that in camera. They both run on bearings. The truth is that my experience with Hinderer knives over time is, while this one gets really, really smooth, the Hinderer has a different feeling about it. There's just, it's slight. I would say maybe a 10 to 15% difference in the quality of smoothness on the way back down. What is that a product of? I don't know. I don't know if it's excess, how they machine the liner and the inside of the titanium, or how they machine the inside of the part where you fit the bearings into the blade. I don't know. I don't know if it's a result of their tumbling process or the area where the detent ball wears its track into the face of the blade. I don't know. But this knife feels a little bit smoother than the ZT. It depends on how much they've broken in. But you have a brand new Hinderer and a brand new ZT right out of the box. Anybody who's ever purchased them both at the same time, the Hinderer, and I'm sure there are anomalies. I'm sure there are a few cases. But again, I've handled a ton of these, so I'm speaking on experience. The Hinderers always feel smoother than these guys out of the box. And then as they break in, they both get smoother, but the Hinderer ends up feeling smoother. The other weird thing is that the detent on the XM18 now is definitely heavier than the ZT. And what it creates, and I think it's the combination of the detent strength and the mass of that blade, and maybe just the overall, the extra robustness of the Hinderer, because it is thicker. The Hinderer is definitely thicker than the ZT in blade and body and everything. And I think it's as somebody who appreciates robustness in there. I'm somebody who likes that. I could care less about the difference in weight between these two, which actually is trivial. That's another, let's talk about that real quick before we get on with feeling, because this all ties in. The ZT0562, 5.64 ounces. You guys ready for this? Hinderer XM18, 5.47. Don't throw the weight argument at me. Don't do that. The Hinderer is thicker and more robust and weighs less than the ZT0562. It's the same thing with the carbon fiber one. That's just how that is. I don't know exactly how that ended up being the case, but it is. The titanium ones with the milled out scales, I think those come in pretty similar too to the XM18. So it's really, weight there is not a thing. But feeling, because of that robustness, that feeling of filling out the hand, and I think just maybe the texturing on the G10 and the chamfering on the titanium, and that combined with the visual aspect of it, you get this idea in your head, and it coincides with visually what you're looking at, and then you feel it when you flip it. This feels more solid. This feels more like the execution, right? The intended execution of the action was just better. It was more accurate. This feels like a good quality, but just less than the Hinderer. The Hinderer feels more solid and stable and robust, and it feels like the clicks even kind of sound a little less. This has a little more machiny noise, and this has more of I don't know, like kind of this makes me think more Ferrari, and this makes me think more, Camaro, this is like a Corvette, and this is more like Ferrari. Both very good, both very fast, and I know that there are Corvettes out there that can stand up 0 to 60 times with Ferraris, right? But the Ferrari corners better, right? The Ferrari maneuvers better. Everything in the Ferrari is a little bit more high quality, right? Is it worth that much more than the Corvette? Well, it depends on what you want out of it. If you just want to go really fast in a straight line, right? Or in the case of the ZT, use it as a tool and not get all hung up on the extra stuff, right? Then yeah, the Corvette. But if you put value into that extra, the hand stitching and the suspension and the ability to maneuver and the low drag, and the aerodynamic lines and all that, there's so much extra that goes into the Ferrari. That's the feeling of quality that I get. This is a Ferrari feeling and this is a Corvette feeling. So that definitely is the case there. Absolutely. Let's talk about the pocket clips. A lot of people are like, oh, the pocket clip on the ZT is so much better because it's deep. So I don't like clips that carry shallow, right? The top of the clip is down here. I'd hate that. This is all the more knife that sticks up out of the pocket. This is about medium, right? Between medium and deep carry, I don't really care. The fact that this ZT carries absolutely deep is cool, but there's no measurable benefits over this much knife sticking up out of your pocket and this much, right? It's nothing versus this little peak here. I think it's a preference thing. In terms of ease of pulling the knife from your pocket or manipulation after it's pulled, not really any difference there, right? The other nice thing is that this can actually be mounted for tip-down carry. You can also get different pocket clips for this if you want to, the customization, this or that. The custom pocket clips for the ZT, that's a little bit of a different story. You can get the same clip that's anodized in a few different colors, and that's about it. Same way with the hardware. A few different colors, that's about it. Pocket clip argument, I just don't really, that doesn't mean anything to me. It just doesn't. So another thing that we didn't talk about between the versions of this knife that are available, this one has carbon fiber and titanium with no texturing on it. This G10 is peel ply textured, right? But this version of it's no longer available. That means the version of the ZT0562 that you can get, the versions of it, are all going to be a bit slippery. The lines will hold your hands in. Honestly, the lines on this are good enough to where you're probably not going to drop it just because of the ergonomic lines. But if you're really going to go out and use that thing, there's a big benefit to texturing on G10, especially Hinderer's texturing. It'll definitely grab your fingers, but it's not aggressive. It might look aggressive, but it's not like the American Lawman or anything like that, or like the what's that LC200 in Spyderco, the Siren, not like that. Same way with the titanium texturing that you can get on the titanium scaled versions. It actually does provide some nice texturing. That can be a problem if you're really going to go out and use these knives the way that they're intended to be used. If you're in a wet or slippery environment, that carbon fiber and that titanium on the ZT0562 is gonna be an issue, right? There's a bunch of little things that I'm nitpicking here, but when it comes down to it, those are little things that enthusiasts pick up on. Somebody like me, somebody who loves both of these knives. I do. It's not like I don't like the 0562 and I love the XM18. No, I love them both. I've just found that I love this one more, and I'm pointing out why. I've figured out exactly why. A lot of people will see this as reaffirmation of spending the extra money. If I had only ever bought one of these and I had just bought this, then that argument would hold firm. Because at that point, I'm really vulnerable. I'm really, if that hypothetically were the case right now, I'd be like, oh, I feel so sick about spending that money. I really need to justify this over this. For years, for 4 years now, I've purchased so many XM18s, continued to come back, continued to analyze exactly what it is that I love about the XM18 over this guy as an enthusiast. That's what this is. That's why I'm able to point this stuff out. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that really is better in the XM18 now versus the 0562. Stuff that used to not be the case. Flipping action used to not be as good. The behind the edge wasn't nearly as good. They didn't have the skinny version. The overall quality of the item, right? The everything wasn't as good, and they didn't have the tri-way pivot system with the bearings and the steel lock bar and all that. Now that they have it, it's really the extra elements of what originally made the XM18 such a sought after knife. They're able to shine, and Rick Hinderer has continued to hone his craft and just create such incredible consistency throughout his line. I buy Hinderers with confidence now. That's why I go back and buy so many, because they always come in with the same level of quality, right? I'm sure people want to ask about heat treat. Which one has a better heat treat for 20 CV or M390? I've heard ZT had some problems with their S35VN. I think they're okay with 20 CV. I've heard some up and downs. I've never heard a single thing bad about Rick Hinderer's heat treatment. I would say both of them are probably going to be pretty good. Here's the kicker, right? For those of you who managed to stick around for that 25-minute rant. Here's the big part of this. Again, pretending this is the carbon fiber or the, titanium one. 260, 425. $165 difference there? Is that what or $165 difference. Is the Rick Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch no choil slicer $160 better than the ZT0562? Well, that is an impossible question to answer. I think overall the knife that has more attention, more quality in it, the knife that is unquestionably higher quality and better in terms of execution now in 2020 is the XM18. But it should be for $425, right? The ZT0562, is it still a good buy? Oh, definitely. Absolutely. This is one of the greatest gateway folders of all time. Unfortunately, that gateway leads to the path to actual Hinderer knives, right? So this whole battle is just shrouded in irony. For people just, if you're somebody who enjoys, this is how I'll end it. If you're somebody who enjoys the aspects of a quality folding knife, the little details, right? You're going to go out and use this, right? You're like, I'm coming at this from a user perspective. I plan to use it, but I've handled enough good knives in the knife world that, I kind of know what to look for. I'm going to use this thing. That's about it for me. I appreciate some of the small details, but I'm not getting too hung up on them. Go with the 0562, right? But if you're aware of the XM18 and you've looked at it and thought, I like how that looks. I don't like the price, but I like how that looks. You might already be doomed. You might end up buying this guy and then feeling obligated to buy that one because that's what you were attracted to in the first place, either in combination with this guy or maybe you settled for this one and wanted this one, right? If that's how you're coming at it, go with this one because it's just going to end up costing you more money in the end, right? That's truthfully the only way to look at it. Both of them are going to function pretty much exactly the same. The feeling of quality and the experience with the XM18 is one that brings me more happiness and is noticeable. Very, very noticeable having both of these in hand. And I would bet money, right? You get 100 people who don't know the price between these two. And they got an hour to sit there and just sit at a table and play with these two knives. All you tell them is it's the same designer, right? Tell us which one feels higher quality. After an hour, I bet at least 90% of the people who sit down and play with the two and start to pick up on all the little details and things, they're going to come to the conclusion that this guy is of higher quality. Especially, assuming they're the same color and everything. That's just, I'm guessing, just based on, like normal human instinct, I guess, whether we're talking about knife people or non-knife people, right? That's what I'm going to conclude there. So I'm going to guess. And that's also based on my experience handing these knives off to my friends, the guys that I used to work with at the dealership. Not all of them end up purchasing an XM18, and it's mainly because it's that much more expensive. But after they've handled, they're like, I really like that XM. I really like it. And it feels better than the ZT. I just can't spend that much money. That's the conclusion that most people come to. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason, no part of this is, you should fork over a chunk of your paycheck for an XM18. You should buy it because it's better. No, you should buy the thing. If you've made the decision that you're going to buy one of these knives, but it's really going to come down to which one you can make the most sense, with your budget, then yeah, if you're on a budget, go with the 0562. But you got to pick the one that's right for you and based on what you put value into. If you put value into all that stuff that I was talking about, the XM18, right? You're considering both of them. buy the XM18. That's the one that's going to make you the most happy. And it'll save you the money of buying both to figure that out. That's really what I want to prevent, is people going, no, I can't, that can't be real. I can't, I'm not going to fall into that. And they buy this and then they buy that one. And they're like, oh, dang it. I want to save people from going down that path. Here in 2020, both of these knives are great, but the Hinderer is reigning supreme in terms of, all of the things that knife enthusiasts collectively could potentially find value in. The Hinderer is the real Hinderer is executed better. $160 more, you got to make that decision for yourself. But yeah, so now with this no choil slicer, which is it's why it's so popular, because that's what people love about this knife, but in a real Hinderer. Yeah. That's if you think like me, that's the way to go. 30 minutes, holy crap. I think I've probably been repeating myself for at least 10 minutes now, right? Sometimes just past the 15-minute mark, I repeat myself. Again, guys, no part of this was me saying that the ZT-0562 is not a good knife. It is. It's one of my most recommendable, it's on my most recommended knives, one of my favorite folding knives of all time, in fact. It's on both of those playlists if you dig deep enough. I love the 0562. I love it. But I love the Hinderer more. And I am more than happy to have spent what I've spent on my Hinderer knives, and I will continue to buy Hinderer knives in the future. All right. That is definitely as long as this video needs to be. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. And remember, there are links for all things Hinderer right down in the description if you are interested in picking one, or hopefully not, but both knives after this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody.